Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is December 9th, 2021, and I'm your co-host, Thefatwizard, joined today by...
Alamaxia.
And Lobos.
And today we're taking a look at Zelda II, The Adventure of Link, released in North America on December 1st, 1988. And so here's a little challenge. I'm going to spring this on to you both unprompted.
Uh-oh.
Describe Zelda II using only other games as references.
The Dark Souls of Zelda games.
Yeah, okay. All right.
That was the
Battle
obvious
of Olympus, but not as confusing.
What did you
Which
say?
one?
Battle of Olympus. It
Yes.
looks like
Okay.
the same engine.
Okay, well, that's cheating. What I'm trying to say here is Zelda 2 is such a unique game that even today it's really hard to articulate because there's really not a lot of games that were made that were like this. And so when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's not a Zelda game. But what was a Zelda game? There was only Zelda 1, right? So Zelda 2 was sort of like, you could see them trying a new direction here.
Yeah.
But Lobos, this is your first time playing.
Yeah.
And I thoroughly loved watching you play, especially because I was, kind of sick for about 8 hours watching you. But Lobos, I want to hear, for someone that is going into this basically like 30 years or whatnot after it was released, and having been a huge fan of the Zelda franchise, I want to hear your thoughts on the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, it feels like they had Zelda 1, and they were like, okay, this is pretty good. People like it. And then some other games that were popular at the time were like JRPGs, like Dragon Warrior and stuff coming out. So that I feel like it's a blend of kind of JRPG and then the original Zelda. So they kept it kind of, action. So it's kind of platformy and live action combat, but it's also got the RPG elements of leveling and kind of picking your stats and stuff. But
Yeah.
And they got NPCs and quests.
Yeah,
and that
NPCs.
sort of thing.
We're talking to them now.
Yep.
So you start off the game, and Zelda is lying down, and she's asleep, or she's like magically asleep, I believe. And of course, the title screen will have a little intro of what's going on, and I think the title screen may talk about the crystals, but I may just be like mixing things all together here. But essentially, what you need to do is you need to place these 6 crystals, which, by the way, I'm not sure why Link has the crystals or who gave them to him. I'm sure it's explained somewhere in the manual.
Would you like the nutshell?
Yeah, Alan, please, Lore expert. Yeah, save me here.
All right, so after the events of Zelda 1, Link was 10 years old. He traveled north, and 6 years later, he is now 16 years old.
Look, this is like...
Yes, he was in the Death Mountain
region. That blows my mind. That's not right.
But up here, he met up with Impa, and Impa gave him the 6 crystals and said, you need to restore the crystals to the palace in order to unlock the last palace where the Triforce of Courage is kept, because the first king of Hyrule sealed it away, and the Zelda that's asleep is Zelda the First. Though the Zelda that you rescue in Legend of Zelda is a much later, more
mature.
Interesting. Zelda. Whoa.
Okay. I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Wow, that's crazy. I'm still taken aback that Zelda was 10 years old. That I feel actually very bad. Yes. What? Okay, actually, that would be worse. But yeah, okay, no, Link was 10 years old.
I mean, I watch a lot of anime, and like everybody that's doing amazing stuff is like 15. Like that's like
true.
Adult age. So like 10 is
true.
like budding.
I'm way past the prime.
This
of my
would have been
life.
coming out probably right around the peak of Dragon Ball.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, you have little tiny Goku.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's that. There you go. There's the intro of Link, the adventure of Link. I guess he only has one adventure, and this is the one. Also, what's really interesting, this is the only game that doesn't have the prefix "The Legend of Zelda." So,
true.
I mean, maybe there's like later ones, like little spin-offs there, but yeah, this is like the main series one that doesn't have "The Legend of Zelda." So, kind of cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you start out the game, and it's immediately side-scrolling. Remember Zelda 1, it's all top down. You start out your side scrolling out of the palace, and then you go to this overworld map, which is really, really cool. Lobos, you want to walk us through this overworld map?
Well, yeah, as I was saying earlier, it's kind of JRPG influence in that there's kind of a safe golden road path that you can walk on where there's no enemy encounters. But then if you step into the plains or you step into the forest, then suddenly these enemy encounters can start to spawn and they'll randomly wander around. And if you run into them, then you get transported from the top-down overworld into a side-scroller, combat section. And then you just have to either finish all the enemies and leave, or you can just try and leave and get out of it and keep moving on.
It's like a random encounter you can try to avoid before it hits you.
Yeah, so the first thing I went to, you can go to some towns. I can't remember, is Rudo one of the towns you can go to? And each of the towns has an old man there that can give you some sort of power. And the first one we got was Shield. And I actually can't remember. Oh, yeah, I think you have to first... Is there like something you have to pick up before you can go meet the grandfather, right?
You have to get the trophy from the Tantari Desert.
Yeah, that's right. And so once you do that, you can go get Shield. Again, that's actually completely optional. I don't think you need Shield to complete the game. I mean, I needed Shield to complete the game, but I don't think that's a crit path thing. So yeah, you can do that. And I think Lobos, you even completed this first palace without Shield, right? Or
yeah, I didn't use Shield at first, but then at some point I was like, you know what? I have this Shield spell, and I might as well use it. And it turns out it's pretty darn powerful for reducing damage.
Good,
yeah. I think it's like a 50% reduction.
Yeah, it feels like that at least. Yeah.
So we're in this first palace here. We're killing some cute little blue spots. Blue slimes, which we're talking about being a JRPG, kind of very reminiscent of the Dragon Warrior series, right?
Yeah.
And I'm actually kind of wondering which one came first. The other thing that's interesting is at the top right, again, JRPG, you see an experience thing, and when you basically level up, actually you kind of level up 3 skills independently, we'll say independently. So there's damage, there's magic, and then life. And basically, when you level one of those up, the experience it requires to level that up again goes up higher. And so anytime you hit one of those thresholds, it'll say, hey, do you want to level up? And you can level up health right now. And so you could say yes, or you could cancel and save that experience and kind of bank it for your magic upgrade if it's higher. So it's kind of an interesting choice there, and it's cool to see speedrunners how they will manipulate their XP to maybe level up your damage very quickly first, because you don't have to worry about getting hit,
right?
But it's a very interesting way to handle XP, which is kind of cool.
And on top of that, there's also in certain areas of the world you can find heart containers or magic potions. And those will increase your magic or life levels. And as far as I remember, life is like defense, basically. And then magic is like reduces how much your spells cost. So, and then whenever you level your magic, it's like your total magic bars, and your life is like your total magic
I think it's
health.
the other way around. When you find the containers, it increases the bar. And then when you level it up, it basically like reduces the health that you take. Yeah. In any case, there's a bunch of I think there's like 4 heart containers and 4 magic containers throughout the world. And I did manage to get them all with the help of the internet. And also I saw Lobos got them all with the help of the chat playing Cold with him.
So the only ones that I got chat help from was the magic containers, because there's like a kind of a requirement for that, I think. Yep,
and you kind of have to just hunt all around the world, so not super fun. But we just completed
it's not a huge world, though.
Was that?
It's what?
It's not a huge world, though.
It's not, but like a lot of the areas are like, you have to step on the specific tile to fall into a thing. And also what's really interesting, and speedrunners do this all the time, is if so we were talking about those wandering monsters on the overworld. If you step on a wandering monster on the same tile that would have something else, it ignores that. And so you can actually step on something that was a crit path, like, there's a well you have to fall down here. But if there happened to be a monster, you would have thought, there's nothing there, and completely miss it. So that's kind of a pain. But we
I
just
didn't know that
completed the first dungeon, and what did we get at the first dungeon? There's an item in each of the dungeons. We got a
You get
candle.
the candle.
Oh yeah, the candle, which lets you see inside of these dark dungeons.
Yeah, which is interesting because to get to the palace with the candle, you first need to go through one of the dark dungeons. So you're like, am I going the right way?
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things
of
where you're like, you're playing and you're like, man, this is rough. But then they give you an item and you're like, oh, now it's easier. And so it's,
Yeah, I mean...
And we didn't really... Good.
It would not be unreasonable to say this is an early Metroidvania. You know, and I think again, Castlevania 2 is actually kind of similar to this, and in some ways we talked about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Ultra version on NES, kind of being the same as this. So, I thoroughly enjoyed my time on this. I would actually love to see another one of these.
Yeah, it was super cool. I like the RPG aspect to it all.
Yeah.
More recent Zeldas are more about, you get the items, they make you powerful, but this is very much like you level up and you kind of choose where you want to level up, and the build is up to you more so than necessarily what you have to get.
I do still like that as a Zelda, it had that element of you go into dungeon or palace, you get an item, and that is what progresses you through the gated area. True. And I love just following that theme. It's something that I know I can get into. There's one area I can just work in. Here's all of my variables, and then I can move on.
You know what I think is magical about this game is that there's just like a lot of like weird little puzzles and stuff. Like, so we're just talking to an NPC right now that says, I lost my mirror. And you got to find her mirror. And it's like, where the heck do I go? Now, I played this game before, so I kind of know. But like, this is the only place in the whole game, as far as I know, that you can like use a table. And Link will use the table and say, oh, there's a mirror under here. And then you bring the mirror back. But there's all sorts of like clues and cryptic hints and secrets that are actually part of the main path, which is so much fun for me to do and kind of decipher. And I think that's what makes this game so special.
I would say it has like almost a point and click adventure vibe where you can interact almost anywhere, and you never know because someplace you might be able to interact and get like a clue or even an item entirely. And that table is one. In one of the later towns, it's just an empty room, but at a certain part in the room, you can like interact and like learn a clue, and you're like, what? I didn't even... you're just mashing the button everywhere, trying to figure out whatever you can.
It was fun to watch you stab at the wall, at the air at every tile that you possibly could.
Of course.
There was one area that you got into an empty room, you jumped up and left and almost out of bounds.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa.
I thought that was intense. I don't know. You never know with these games. You never know.
Here's something that's kind of interesting, and I just want to touch on, because everyone knows like the big meme. You guys remember, if there's one meme on this game, what is that meme?
It's I am error.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
So here's the thing. Here's the funny thing about this, right? There's a character that he says, I am error. And people are like, oh, that's funny because it's like it's
like a bad translation or something.
Bad translation or whatever. Yeah. Actually, the answer is no. That is actually translated. Right. There's another character that is a reference. So there's two characters that are sort of related. Did anyone see or read up on the other character that's sort of related to like a programmer joke?
I did.
Yeah.
I didn't, I think.
Okay, so there's a guy, I don't remember where he is, but he says, I am Bagu.
Oh, yeah, Bagu,
and, yeah, Bagu. And I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, and from my understanding, that means, in Japanese, bug.
Oh, okay.
And so what's funny is that wasn't translated. Because they didn't the translators didn't understand that there was a programmer kind of having fun there.
Right.
And so the actual bug is that Bagu isn't translated. And I think that's hilarious to kind of think about, because everyone looks at Aaron like, oh, that's dumb. But no,
right.
That's a programmer having fun. And there actually is a bug there, but not related to him. So a little bit of trivia there. Again, this game has a lot of cool lore behind it and a lot of really great speedrunning tactics behind all this stuff. And as we talk about, I want to speculate here for a second. because we've killed a boss, and we'll be killing another boss here in a second. And keep your eye on Link, because when you kill a boss, the screen kind of flashes, you know? And behind Link, you can see the shadow projected. So my question to you both is that foreshadowing, or is that just a cool effect what do you think?
Well, if it was foreshadowing, it would be in front of Link, right? So it would be backshadowing.
That would look weird.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness.
No, yeah, I'll have to take a look at it when it happens, because I definitely didn't, latch on to anything.
But you didn't know who was the end boss, so
right.
something you kind of notice.
Like, I knew Shadow Link was a thing, but I didn't think of it in terms of this game, so I never really made that connection. But that's interesting.
No, we're killing some of these red knights. I think we're in dungeon number 3, and watching you start with these, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's infuriating, but it's like you realize how difficult they are, and then I think about halfway through the game, Lobos, you found out the strategy for killing, which I take for granted because I've pretty much as a kid always known that. But what's the strategy for killing those knights? Yeah.
Well, the dark nuts have like a shield. They pretty much straight up have a shield all the time, and it's either in the up or the down position. And a lot of times, if you go to attack them where their shield isn't, they'll just move the shield to block. Yeah. And so you maybe hit them half the time. Yeah, exactly. They're reading your inputs. But for some reason, if you just jump attack and you time your attack right, then you'll just hit them
over the shield,
regardless.
All right, so watch this. We're going to kill the boss.
Okay.
And then watch the... what do you think?
Let's see.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely not an error. That's something I would say is 100% intentional.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's cool. So we just killed, I don't know, Alamaxia, do you know what the character's name is?
Germa Fencer.
Wow, okay.
Names?
The first boss was Horsehead.
Okay, that makes
because
sense.
he had a head that was a horse.
I can see
right?
that.
Germa Fencer? Like German? Like, is he, I don't know.
Like JermaFenser.
Anyway, he's got a bunch of heads you pop off, and then they kind of fly around the room and shoot bullets at you. It's actually pretty easy. A lot of the bosses here are fairly easy. You just kind of got to get your timing down there, so nothing too crazy.
A much harder version of Germa Fencer was Blind from
Oh
Link to the
yeah,
Past.
that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So did anyone see that we just talked to a little blob that was sleeping, but if you talk to him a couple times, you wake him up. And I think he actually says like, hey, go talk to my master, and we're going to meet, is this Bagu right here?
Yeah, he says north of river, and there's a bunch of like spots that are in the forest that there'll be a special screen, but they're not necessarily the one you're looking for. So you have to kind of scour the forest bit by bit until you find Bagu.
Yeah. What's he give you?
Yeah, he grants you access to cross the river because you have his name. He's like, tell the guard at the town, and he'll let you across.
This guy's good. This
guy. You know Bagu.
Totally, hey, you know Bagu? Yeah, come on.
And then is this part actually Death Mountain, or is that later?
So this area that you're heading down into is Death Mountain, and whenever you get all the way to the end of it and we find the item at the end, take very good note of the layout of that land and where the lakes are.
Yeah.
It is the entirety of Zelda 1.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's not something I would recognize off the top of my head, you know?
Yeah, I actually didn't recognize it until it was called out. I was like, oh yeah, I can see that. Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, the rocks we go into is actually Spectacle Rock.
Spectacle Rock. Nice.
So we're going here to pick up a hammer because there's all these roadblocks that are like boulders that are in the crit path, and a couple villagers have told us like, hey, you got to use a hammer to clear the roadblocks. So we're going to do that right now after just crossing that river from the water town. I don't remember what the water town was called, but it's called Water Town of something or another.
Saria.
Oh yeah, Saria.
So
which is
all. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I noticed that a lot of these names were like reused in things like Ocarina of Time, like Saria and Rudo is the one on the Zora in Ocarina of Time.
All of the towns except for Mido Town were later made the sages in Ocarina of Time. And Mido Town Even the hidden town of Naburu or Kasuto was basically one of the sages that was hidden.
Really?
But Mito is the guy that blocks you from getting out of the Kokiri Forest at the beginning of Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, I remember him.
So you have all of the sages and Mito represented through the towns in Adventure Link, which I think is really neat having that connection.
Right? Yeah, especially because I knew Ocarina of Time very well before this, and so I was like, oh, I know these names. That's cool.
And timeline-wise, this takes place way after Ocarina of Time, so these towns would have been named after the sages.
Don't get started on the timeline, man. That's a
not
mess.
doing that
This is the end of a timeline.
I have a
this is the last
massive hardcover book that's like the timelines of Legend of Zelda, and it's just like, no, I don't know, man. It's a mess. But that's cool. That's cool.
So we got the hammer, and then we're moving on to. For some reason, I just really like this area. It's this big gravestone area, and you have to find. There's like this king's tomb, and then you learn south of the king's tomb, there's like a tunnel that you have to use to pass on to the next level. It's less of a tunnel, more like a giant fall, but whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. You can like. Oh, and by the way, whenever you're out in the overworld and you get a random encounter, I always thought this sound is a guy going, "Whoa!" Sounds like to me.
Yeah.
And now, so we're in a town here, and by the way, I don't know if you've noticed, but all the little kids in this game are straight up geniuses. Like I'm serious. There's like 5 or 6 of them that literally will be like, "Oh, by the way,
they know everything." Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, the palace out here, it's got a raft. Did you know that?
Yeah. There's a hole in this palace. Like, go down it. You're like, okay, kid.
How'd you know that little bit? It makes sense. Why
and no one
go for it.
No one between the age of the kid and the elder has any clue of what's going on.
They're like, I don't know anything.
I know nothing.
Yeah, I know nothing.
It makes sense why there's like a little child that's fallen down a well later on in the little maze area. But
you need to capture. Rescue.
And here we go. Yeah, our daughter's sick. We got to go help her. We just got the downward slash or the downwards thrust, which is a great.
Yeah. If you're familiar with DuckTales on the NES, you play as Scrooge McDuck, and you got the pogo ability, and that is basically this, which is amazing. You can just bounce off enemies while dealing damage to them, and it's super nice for just running past screens, just bouncing off enemies.
Yeah, and occasionally though you'll get stuck on an enemy as like they'll be endlessly blocking your downwards attack, and you can't shake loose of them without getting damage. So that's bad times. But I found that a lot more useful than the up attack. The up attack, because again, you can literally pogo stick off of enemies and just rapidly kill them, whereas the up attack you just kind of have to like mash the jump button.
Yeah, the up attack really only had one useful part in the game, and that was on breaking some blocks. But there was one boss that it was really useful on.
Oh, which boss is that? I don't think I
was it the one of the second to last one?
Thunderbird?
The dragon boss, Barba.
Oh, yeah.
I remember Barba.
Comes out of lava.
Oh, I didn't use him on
up thrust to get under his chin and just stab him repeatedly.
I didn't use it on Barba. Interesting, though.
Okay. Well, for folks,
it's really fun to get all of the different thrusts and then do bosses in reverse order. Like you get to Horsehead, but you don't fight him. Then you get to the next boss and you don't fight him. And then you just go back with all your powers and just
destroy. Yeah,
that's cool. Well,
here's
for
that
folks
tunnel.
that didn't see it, we got some medicine, brought it to this woman's kid, and then we were granted the ability to turn into a fairy.
Which, not according to the manual, will fly you through key doors?
It will.
But it will, and, it makes sense to me, and that's how I always... So here's the thing. I honestly thought that was part of the crit path in one of the upcoming dungeons.
Right.
Because you get to this dungeon, and there's a locked door right away, and you're like, all right, well, how do I get past? Oh, yeah, obviously you get tiny. Make yourself tiny. But we'll talk about that when we get there.
Right.
I don't think it matters too much one way or the other. But we've
No,
just
but it's
moved on
cool.
to-
It's definitely
it's
a cool
cool, yeah.
piece of information. Yeah, we
were on
got the
Palace
boots.
4, I think. Yeah,
We got the boots, which let you walk across water.
No, we don't have the boots yet.
What?
We got
I
the
thought-
raft. We
yeah.
got the raft, I think. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because the boots will be in the maze palace we go to next.
Oh, okay. I thought you had to take the boots to get over to this island in order
Nope,
to
there's
get
like
into
an
it.
underground passage we went through. Because remember, we went south of the King's Tomb, and that was the tunnel that brings us kind of under the water and then up into this palace here. So.
I'm getting ahead of us.
Yeah. Slow down there, speedrunner.
I'm sorry.
We'll get there. So as you can see, my stats are: I've got strength, I've got weapon 4, magic 4, and life 6. And I don't max out my stats because at this point, it gets a little tricky to level up through just getting enough XP. You know, because like once you die, all the XP you've accumulated is cleared out. And if you sit there and kill every monster in palaces, you're gonna have a bad time because you're gonna take a lot of damage. So honestly, I kind of stopped leveling up, except for when you kill a boss, you get an automatic level up. But Alamaxia, did you max out?
I did, and there's actually a pretty easy way to do it, and you can get overpowered really early in the game. You know those bubbles that fly around that you dodge all the time? You can kill those.
Okay.
At level 1, it takes about 100 swings, but they give you 50 XP each, and as you level up your sword, it takes fewer and fewer, I think down to like 50 swings. But you can basically just sit there, fight a handful of bubbles, reset the room, walk back in, fight him again.
Wait,
you just farm hundreds of
50
XP.
swings for a bubble?
Yep.
What the?
You have to sit. It stuns in front of you, but you can just sit there and stab.
Oh,
stab,
okay,
stab,
okay.
stab, stab.
How is it an efficient way to grind? 50
Because it doesn't damage you, and you just
It
get
just
50
sits
XP
there and you
for
just do it.
stabbing it.
Oh my gosh! I thought you.
Wow.
Didn't you just say you could get overpowered quickly?
Yes.
That sounds like 6 hours.
Better than the 2 XP you get from the slimes.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But,
I
mean,
get this.
The red knights
get
give
it.
you 100 XP.
Yeah,
all
but
right,
you're going to take a lot of damage, and you got to,
not the red knights, not the blue knights.
Okay,
So
the
we're
blue
fighting
knights,
a blue
yeah.
knight now. Alamaxia, walk us through this blue knight because they're like one of the hardest enemies in the game.
Yeah, the blue dark nuts suck because not only do they have the shield that goes up and down and blocks half your attacks, and they have the sword that, flings out, but they also have a beam on their sword, kind of like Link does. And they can throw out multiple beams at a time. And it becomes a game of just standing there in one spot and keeping your shield up, down, up, down. You just block all of them and then move in for an attack. And then once they start attacking again, you just have to wait and block.
What's really annoying about them
it's not fun.
is they constantly want to move backwards too.
Yeah.
And so
They stay
we
away
actually
from
just
you.
saw that this guy was he was backing up and he went through one of the locked doors and I couldn't get past the locked door because he was and I couldn't kill him, so you got to actually back up and then kind of draw him out. It's just a pain. Whereas the red knights, they're like they're gung ho coming to get you.
I really like that with the AI though. It's
hard.
was challenging. They really made just those particular enemies, and even in Zelda 1, the Dark Nuts were kind of the more challenging one that you'd have to watch out for.
We didn't talk about really the base combat mechanics, but Link has a shield by default that he's holding up, and you can block physical projectiles, not necessarily magical ones because there's like fireballs later, but you can duck and block low or top. And enemies will throw projectiles low or top, sometimes in between maybe, and you have to kind of guess. But it's really cool by default, and you can jump, and now we have the down pogo attack,
thrust,
which is super nice, super nice.
And then we didn't even talk about magic. I mean, we've kind of been talking about it in passing,
fair.
but who wants to talk about some of the magic and how you use it?
I'll go through that. So in Zelda 2, like you said, there's a whole bunch of magics. There is shield, jump, life, fairy, fire, reflect, spell. Yeah, a spell called spell,
of
course.
and thunder. Really, a few of the spells you get only really have one use. Like the spell we'll see much later on when we get to the hidden town of Kasuto, and then thunder is only used at the kind of boss before the final boss.
It does do a bunch of damage to other enemies in the room, and I think spell will actually transform.
It just costs so much.
It does.
Yeah.
Spell will transform the anti-fairies into slimes, I think. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you can kill them. Anti-fairies are just these circular enemies that just bounce around the room very predictably, but they can be annoying if there's a lot of them. Or
one thing that's worth noting is, so it makes sense. You know, you get hit by an enemy, it drains your life. That's expected. You get hit by the anti-fairies, and it drains your magic. Okay, you can see that. Yeah. And then you get hit by these other guys that like horse heads, and it drains your
bouncy
XP.
Orange guys.
It drains your XP.
Yeah.
Your XP. Oof.
And I remember Lobos caught on to that because he was 1 XP away from leveling up. And then you got hit by something, didn't notice the XP went down, and killed something. And you're like, wait, why didn't I level? Why do I need more XP now? And he's like, oh, I think that's what happened. So
XP drain is rough.
Oh, and then
and it sucks because those guys will pop in just out of nowhere, and sometimes when they spawn in, you can see them shoot up from the bottom and kind of glitch through the floor.
So we just met a girl. I think it's hilarious. She says to Link, "I am thirsty."
Yeah.
And then you walk half a screen over. It just says want some water, and then you bring back her, and she's like, "You brought me water." Okay, it's like, well,
hey, come in and get the legendary spell that my family has kept secret.
Right.
It makes your sword shoot fire. I didn't use this.
When all else fails,
I tried to use
fire.
this several times. It's fire spell, and it gives you projectiles until you transfer screens from your sword. I didn't find a good way to use this. Did anybody else?
The only thing I know that it uses, like the little, they look like they have like pogo legs. They jump really high and shoot a
yeah. So
It'll
like
kill
those.
those things
Pretty well.
I think it will also kill the iguana things. But
there's also
yeah.
There's flying eyeballs that I think you can damage them with fire before they open their eye.
Oh, okay, cool.
I think, but I do know those little iguana things are the main use.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it costs 16 magic, and I'd rather just like skip the enemy there.
Yeah.
And then we just talked to a little kid. I love this kid. What he says is, "Jump into a hole in the palace if you go." It's just like,
go jump into a hole.
Wow.
How does he know this? I don't know. Who knows?
But no, yeah, you totally want to do
There's
that.
the iguana. Oh, is that the iguana you're talking about?
Yes, that.
Yeah,
thing.
that
I was
guy.
thinking like Creature from the Black Lagoon. Like that's what it looked like to me. Like somebody in a mascot uniform.
And then someone else told us we had to go to the seaside village before we go to the other palace.
Darunia.
Darunia.
A Goron
yes,
name, I
thank
think,
you.
right? Mm-hmm. So I had people early on tell me that the bubbles one-shot. So I was avoiding bubbles, and I was like, this is going to be a no-bubble hit playthrough. But eventually I got hit by a bubble, and I was like, that did not one-shot me. So
Proceeds to get hit by every bubble.
Now, Lobos, did you
gosh.
find out how to get to the? There's a warrior in here that you're supposed to talk to. Did you figure that out?
Yes, I did. This is the one where
How
I need
did you
to
figure
jump.
that out? Yeah,
You need to jump
down
on
the
top of
chimney.
the. Yeah. I think I just tried different things, and I was like, I could. I tried all my spells, and jump was one of them, of course. And then I noticed that, there was kind of these two Mario-looking blocks on top of a couple of the buildings. So I was like, first I thought you were going to destroy them, and then that would give you passage into the house.
Okay.
Also, only one building in the town was like, it seems like there's someone behind this door. So that kind of gave me a clue that
it
building.
says that?
Yeah, somewhere in the town, I forget. If you press interact on the door, it says, it seems that there's someone behind this door. Yeah. So yeah, that gave me.
And here's another kid. I tell you, this kid knows. These kids know everything. The kid tells us there's a powerful knight in this town. So yeah, sure enough,
Thanks, kid.
You can get the jump up attack, and I don't think you actually need this. Alamaxia, do you know for sure?
There is a key you get from jumping up.
There is, but I was using fairy, so.
Oh well, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's needed to get through a dungeon.
Yeah.
So you can carry keys between dungeons.
Yeah, that
Which you
dangerous,
could do. You
though.
could do that in Zelda 1 as well.
That's true. But you can
I
also
didn't-
buy keys in Zelda 1.
Yes, and I didn't figure this out until later when I was like through a dungeon and I was missing a key and I was like, "What is going on?" And then I was like, "Oh man, it probably carries." So I went into a different dungeon, got a key, and then I came back and I could do it. Yeah.
You got to pay it forward there.
So just to talk, I really like this section that they do.
The maze,
which is,
right?
Yeah, it's a big maze and there's some kind of forced encounters while you're crossing bridges and making your way to this dungeon. But later on, once you get the boots from this dungeon, you can just traverse straight to the dungeon and avoid all of it. It's really good, like level design, I think. And I just wanted to praise it for that.
Yeah, well, you said it was like the Dark Souls of Zelda games,
Exactly.
right? There you go. Yeah, so you open up a shortcut there.
Yeah.
It kind of reminded me of the canoe from Final Fantasy, where you could just go up those little waterway channels.
Yeah.
And we could even use the boot. We even use the boots later on to get into a different palace, and there was some hidden stuff out in the waters.
Yes, for sure.
So this is where the game is going to start getting mean. So this is dungeon palace number 5, and you are introduced. I think they're just called wizards, but I mean honestly, they're pretty much whiz robes.
Whiz robes, yeah.
Yeah, they basically shoot a projectile beam
of
at
energy.
you. Yeah, beam of energy. You can actually
They
block that with your
disappear and they respawn somewhere
Yeah,
else,
they
and they
respawn.
shoot a projectile and they disappear. But yeah, you can't pogo off them, and that was my first thing. I was like, "Dang it, I can't pogo off them." So, yeah.
But what's actually really mean is you can get to the end boss here and not have the tools you need
Oh yeah.
to actually kill it.
Oh yeah.
And
I did
so
that several
think-
times, I think.
Yeah, and again, that's one of the things I like about this game. Although it's frustrating if you don't know the stuff ahead of time, but there's no indication that you don't have the stuff. It's just like, well,
Right.
I can't figure out how to do damage,
Yeah.
so like maybe I just explore the entire world and find a solution there.
Yeah, I never really got
Yeah.
frustrated with it, but I'm pretty familiar with retro game experiences, so I just assumed I tried all my spells, I hit it in multiple places. I need something probably to get through this.
Yeah.
And that
no,
was the
but I mean,
case.
the nice thing is you have your safety net there with chat, which can you give you slight
That's
hints.
true.
But you imagine you're a 10-year-old kid and that you got this for Christmas and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
playing for it. No one's even beaten it. So and Nintendo Power hasn't come out. You're like,
There's
what the heck
you
am I
can't just
supposed to do?
Google whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, here's something that is interesting: is we're in this area with these horse heads, and it looks like they're spawning infinitely, but there's really only like 2 of them. So you can either keep them on the screen like I have them right now, or if you kill them, they won't even respawn. I don't know if you noticed that at all, Lobos.
Some of them do respawn, and I use that to my advantage.
Some of them do. Yeah.
Yeah. They're very much, Castlevania Medusa heads, which they just kind of sine wave across the screen. And if you're moving like kind of just across the screen by walking, they're pretty easy to dodge. But once you start attacking other things or jumping, then they spawn in weird positions and it gets tough. There's the boss that we were talking about.
There's the boss. Yeah.
Karok.
Karok. Huh?
One of the things I really like is it's almost got like a Mega Man thing where you go into a boss room, you can see the curtains draped.
Yeah.
And they play around with that a little later where it's not actually a boss. But for
Right.
most of the palaces, you're like, oh man, this is a boss ready to go.
Yep, I would see the curtains and I'm like, all right, cast shield, because you don't want to take as much damage from those bosses. These are classic Stalfos enemies from the Zelda series.
Another dark nut, blue dark nut.
Blue Dark Nut.
The thing I like about those Stalfos is that they're one of the few enemies that also, will jump at you and are pretty much a threat because they have that downward attack too.
Yeah.
Just like you do.
So what you saw me was just cheesing the dungeon. I didn't have a key. I was like, screw
Yeah.
this. I don't need a key. I'm going to turn into a fairy and go get those boots. And so sure enough, I got the boots. And on one of these little tiles, just a little bit southwest of the palace, there is a little child you can pick up and bring home. But, again, one of the things I love about anytime you find an item in this game, you like raise it over your head. And there's just something comical about this.
Picking up
Link
a child.
baby.
I got child. Yay. Yeah.
Yeah, but we bring back the child, and that is a key component for clearing out I think we're on the 5th palace, because this wise man will give you the reflect spell.
Ah, yeah, reflect.
Yeah, so this is actually, there's another really great place to use this. Lobos, you didn't need to use it because you were very skillful in your Thunderbird fight, but reflect is a very handy thing
Nice.
in the Thunderbird fight.
Well, doesn't the Thunderbird drop fireballs?
Yeah, but for some
That
reason...
works?
Yeah, reflect. Shield... I mean, you'll get hit with shield and you'll take less damage, but reflect actually will ignore like 3/4 of them, so that's pretty cool. We'll show you.
Okay.
Actually, and if you
want,
want to go crazy, you use reflect and shield, and now it's, you're pretty good. But yeah, this boss is pretty easy. What would you say his name was? Alamaxia. Karok. He's basically a big wizard and shoots. He will turn invisible and then re-invisible and shoot a bolt or some sort of projectile at you. You cast reflect and you bounce it back to him, and hopefully he respawns in front of the projectile that you're shooting back at him.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of just like you just have to sit in one area and just hope that he kind of runs into his own bolts there. Or projectiles.
I feel like he's also the fastest boss in the game because of how quickly he teleports around, and when he teleports under you, you have no time to get out.
You're just gonna get hit. He's like an elite Wizrobe.
Yeah.
I ended up just going all the way to the left of the screen because he rarely teleported there, and I just sat there with my with my shield.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the
worked out well
boss
enough.
that you could legitimately like go AFK and then like go get a drink, and then like for some reason you just wanted to crouch and guard yourself and then come back and the boss would be dead.
Yep.
So it's kind of a funny thing. It's a real gimmicky fight, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's if you don't have that, you can't win. When you do have it, you can't take damage, basically.
Now, once you clear out a palace, assuming
You
you've
can't lose.
killed the boss and you have gotten the item, it'll turn into a rock, so you can't go back in there.
Yeah.
But you can actually kill the boss without getting the item, and then you have to go back in and find the item before it's cleared officially. But we did pick up the boots, as we mentioned, and so that allows us to go into the secret passage. So again, this ocean looks like it's completely ocean, but if you hit certain areas or like walk on certain areas, you'll find that there's actually a pathway through the ocean to palace number 6. Or is this number 5? I can't remember which palace we're on.
Yeah.
This is number 5.
Yeah.
We're number
Palace
5,
of
okay.
the Sea.
Yeah, so I
And this
came
is the one-
here first, I think. Oh, no. I
can't-
had to get the boots, and then I
Yeah.
came here. But I explored a lot of this dungeon before going back to the other dungeon, because I know I needed... I figured I needed the item, right? The reflect, to kill that boss. So I came here to look for it.
Because you thought it might actually be an item.
Yeah, I thought it would be in this dungeon.
Like a magical shield or something.
Right.
Ah.
Okay. And maybe, is that maybe like where you lost one of your keys or something like that?
These are the 2 dungeons that I traded keys between. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then also just a little bit north of this path, there's actually another heart container on the ocean. And this one, I think there was a little kid that told us there was like a secret in this dungeon, like, or there's
Hidden
palace
passage.
has a false wall.
Yeah. And I thought this flute looked like a plunger.
It does look like a plunger.
But then I knew I needed a flute, so I was like, all right, yeah. It's me.
Yeah, I mean, nothing too special here. We picked up the item, and now we're going to go... One of my favorite bosses here. Lois, you want to walk us through this boss?
Yeah, well, most of the bosses at this point, besides, what was his name? Korok? Karok. Most of them, you just jump and hit him in the head, and that's kind of the key. But this is the kind of the opposite, where you hit him in the chest, and that would be where you need to hit him. But he throws out this spiked ball mace that you just kind of need to time, wait for him to throw his attack, run in, hit his chest, and then run back in and hit his chest. And rinse and repeat. So it wasn't so bad, but it was different from the norm. So something to kind of figure out for yourself.
You guys remember the Road Warriors in wrestling, like way back in late 80s?
Oh my gosh.
They had they had like football pads with spikes on them. This guy reminds me of one of those, like just a big wrestler looking dude with a spiked helmet and then a mace. So I love this guy. But yeah, you can see, oh man, I'm like one hit from being killed. Who's going to win? Oh, I win. I win because I get to edit the footage. So
I really feel like the hardest boss in this entire game is just simply the Blue Dark Knight.
I would disagree. I mean,
the Blue Dark Knights are tough, but there was one that was harder than that.
There's a blue one that'll like jump around and throw.
Yeah, those guys I found hardest. Yeah. The hawk kind of enemies. Those.
Yeah. And now we got the warp whistle and we could use this on. It looks like a spider.
Yeah.
But I guess it's a demon. They call it like the river demon or something like that.
Devil. Yeah, demon or devil. Right. It really, I mean, I had played Pokemon, so I was familiar with the idea of playing a flute to wake up Snorlax, and that's kind of what this is, that I think Pokemon just kind of took inspiration from. Because he's blocking your path, and you just go play a flute, and then he leaves. And that's exactly what you do with like Snorlax and Pokemon, so yeah.
Well, once you do that, you have to go through these 3 little fenced areas where these dudes are chucking rocks at you, and there's an enemy there. And that's always a pain, especially because that's like how you get back down to the main palace. Like the final palace basically starts your, call it like health reservoir, starts on that screen and goes all the way to actually trying to get to the Great Palace. So it's very challenging. But we made it to this abandoned town, Kasuto?
Old Kasuto.
Yeah, and the wizard here says the town's dead. We have to go to the East Woods. Now, this is something I was lost for a long time until I looked it up, and I realized that there's a way to find these woods that I wasn't doing.
Yeah.
Lobos, did you figure this out right away?
You know, I did, but I don't think I was going for what the game intended. Like, I was more thinking, so you're on the overworld, and there's like forest tiles, and you can use the hammer that you get early on to break barriers, roadblocks. And I was just trying to, classic Link, cut down some shrubs. And it turns out, I don't know if it's only in this area that you can do it, but yeah, you can cut some.
You can do it in all of them.
Really? No way.
You can even open up the tile where Bagu's house is and see the little house tile.
That's cool.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you can wreck Bagu's house.
That too.
So I only did it in this section, and I think the old man in quote unquote old Kasuto mentioned something about it, and so I just by chance tried to slash these forests, and I found it.
That's cool. Yeah. But we got some good information there. We got information. Well, first of all, there's someone that wants to see if we have all 7 magic containers. We'll get back to them. Yep. We got another clue that says you have to, I think, call for help.
Oh,
call for help at the 3 rocks or something like that.
Yeah.
And so again, that you go use the warp whistle, not the warp whistle, the whistle, and the castle appears, and then you can go into it. And there's actually a little mini boss here. It's one of the old bosses we fought in, was it dungeon number 3, which we didn't actually talk about, but it's basically a horse, guy riding a horse, and he'll come and kind of like hit you or swipe at you and then go off the screen, and then swipe at you and go off the screen. Anyway, you got to time your down thrust. So as he's swiping at you, you basically jump on him and do some damage. After you do enough damage, he'll jump off his horse, and then it's just a normal Blue Knight attack, or Blue
Dark Knight,
fight.
Yeah.
I
think there's 2 mini bosses in this stage. Is that right?
Oh, I don't remember.
I think I remember another mini boss, but
I think Horsehead comes back as a mini boss.
Does he?
Didn't he?
I don't remember. But I think there's another mini boss because I remember thinking.
I might have skipped part of the dungeon though, because I just used fairy to jump through something. So,
well, see, I remember thinking that this dungeon was not going to have a boss, and it was only mini bosses, but that didn't end up being the case. So,
now while I was jabbering, did anyone see what item I just picked up?
The cross, yeah.
What's
the cross lets you see invisible enemies, which by this point you've probably encountered. There's a couple of sections that they don't block your progression, but you start to head a certain way, and you're like, I can't see any of the enemies, and they hit me so hard. And
Little
also
flying eyes will be invisible.
Yeah. Also, the old Kasuto is now full of invisible enemies, and you can't. Yeah, it's rough.
So, Lobos, I want you to walk us through this strategy. I will say, or this fight, this big dragon fight. I think it is funny that you didn't use jump until the very end, but yeah, walk us through what's going on here.
Yeah. What was this guy's name again? Barba. Okay, so Barba's a dragon, and he's basically a neck and a head, and he pops up from pits on the screen, and there's a couple of platforms you can jump to get him to spawn. When he jumps up or when he spawns, he'll spit a string of fireballs wherever you are at, and so you have to kind of predict maybe where he's going to pop up, do some hits, and then avoid his fireballs and rinse and repeat till he dies. But yeah, I just kind of hit him in the chest without the up attack, and I think I did use shield. At this point, I was regularly using shield on boss fights. Yeah, but he's pretty straightforward.
He's a pretty
boss.
relaxing fight. He's not. Really
it wasn't too bad.
He doesn't really escalate in any way, as far as I can tell. It's just kind of like you do the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, predicting where he's going to show up, you just said slash it. You're like, I think he's going to show up on this side.
I don't know if it was luck or whatever, but he'd seem to like alternate between two locations until you hit him in one of those locations. I don't know if that's actually how it works.
I was trying to pick up on some sort of pattern, but I think ultimately I couldn't. So I thought maybe it was just kind of random, but yeah, whatever.
So we have completed all 6 of the dungeons, and so now we just got to do a little bit of filler stuff before we can go to the final palace. So in order to do that, we're going to need 7 total magic containers.
Right.
And then that will give you access to an individual that gives you spell. And then you have to use spell to get the magic key in the town of Kasuto.
Yep.
Oh, no, actually, no, that's not how it works. I missed a step. So you get 7 magic containers, and then you can go get your final 8th magic container, and then I think that triggers getting spell, and then also will trigger getting thunder, which is needed to open the last palace. Alamaxia, do a fact check on me. Is that all right?
I think you do get the magical key. You get the magical key here, right?
You get the magical key at the end of Kasuto when you use spell.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then thunder, you have to go somewhere else to get. And I'm
back to old
Kasuto.
Where
that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one where you technically, I guess, by the books, you should have got the magic key before the palace we just cleared. But as far as I'm concerned, like, it doesn't really get you much if you get the magic key before that palace or after. Like, you have to get the magic key anyway. And in fact, using the fairy to go through the little keyholes is actually putting you at a disadvantage because it's using up some of your magic.
Right.
So, you know, I don't know. I know, Lobos, you were like, no glitches, no exploits.
I didn't want to go. Yeah, we were very, I wanted to be very clear. Some people said that in the manual for the game, it stated that Fairy could go through key doors.
It doesn't do that, but I'm pretty sure there was a Nintendo Power that told you that.
I think it says that it can go through small holes.
Well,
and that's the hint that
so
it
here's
can
the
go
thing.
through the keyhole on the door. If you try to go through like any other part of the door, it won't go through. You have to go through the keyhole.
Here's the thing. It doesn't say that. And also, on a later version of Zelda 2,
in
they
Japan,
patched it.
In Japan,
no, in Europe. In Europe.
Sorry, Europe.
They
not North
patched
America,
it so Fairy does not work. Okay, so that's my, that's my information for determining that is not intended, and you can do it.
Try
with a magical
telling
key
10-year-old me that was not the intended way to beat this game.
Build me a time machine, and I'll tell 10-year-old you. All right,
gladly. Hey, well, so we're getting to now. Now the game is just going to start getting very unfriendly. So you have to do this.
It goes from a 3 of 10 to as you said, an 11 of 10.
Like, yeah, at this point, like, this game is very pleasant. Like, it's challenging, right? But it's not unreasonably, and it's very fun. Alamaxi, walk us through this like nightmarish path to the final palace.
if you enjoy pain,
I do.
and lava,
yep.
and getting knocked back into things from enemies that weren't on the screen when you were jumping, then this is the place for you.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
It's basically an entire gauntlet where they're throwing a lot of the strongest enemies at you. A lot of the red lizards that will throw their mace, and these orange lizards that have the long spear, and you just have to fight your way through this. There's a lot of forced encounters. You can't get around the random encounters. You just have to get good, and this is the only way to get to the final palace. It was this is really putting Link to the test of are you the hero that Hyrule needs.
By the way, I want to talk a little bit about the final palace real quick, and then I'll let you go, Lobos. So when you die at the final palace, except for ignoring the very, very final room, if you die at the palace, you luckily get to start at the palace. But that's actually only because of a technical limitation. It's not so much a limitation, but basically, when the game was originally released on the Famicom, there were two sides: the A side and the B side, and this palace was on the B side, whereas the place you'd respawn was on the A side, and so they thought it was too. It was a bad experience to have to swap your cartridge out each time. So that's why you start in the palace. Yeah.
Interesting.
But for whatever reason, they don't do that with the very, very final boss there. So, Lobos, back to you.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that most of the game, the difficulty is that over time, fighting a bunch of enemies, you'll wear down your mana, you'll wear down your health.
It's a battle of attrition.
And then eventually you'll game over and you have to restart all the way at the starting point. But at this point, they start throwing pits that will completely consume a life. And that, of course, in any game is where it's like, it's serious mode. And enemies will knock you back considerably, almost Castlevania style. And it just, it gets messy. But luckily, they do have this respawn in the last dungeon. And that was a life changer. I mean, it just saved my life so many times.
So we've got
one thing we haven't talked about yet is when you get a game over, you get Ganon just taunting you.
Oh yeah,
Ganon returns.
But also there's lore because in Zelda 1 you actually defeat Ganon, and then in Zelda 2 the whole thing is that everybody's trying to resurrect Ganon, I think.
Yes.
And then if you fail, Ganon comes back, and that's why he taunts you. So that's why he's on the game over screen.
Because the sacrifice of Link brings Ganon back.
Brutal. Not only were you...
And that's why everyone's after Link.
Yeah.
They just want to sacrifice him.
You weren't only like the hero to kill Ganon, but then afterwards you got to stay alive. Otherwise you bring Ganon back.
He comes back, and
it's all gone. Oh, now we're seeing those bird enemies.
They're nightmare. So we're gonna watch almost an entire playthrough of this last dungeon because it's so magical. And I want to start with saying the music when you go into the final palace is some of the most epic music I think you can put on an NES. It there's basically a little lead up. There's a little lead up, 5 or 6 notes, and then it hits this looping music. But man, that thing hits hard, and you go there and you see this barrier of energy just kind of and you're like, wow, it is on. I feel like I'm ready to take on anything here. That's such a cool moment.
I feel like Zelda often does this thing where you have this final area to enter and there's a barrier. And you're like, and I went here before I could clear that barrier. So I saw it and I was like, someday I'm going to get past that and enter this dungeon. And then you finally do. And it's like, here we go. This is it. This is the end.
And also, in Zelda 1, the final dungeon, like we said, it has different music. It has that barrier. It's a direct kind of just natural, I guess, segue from Zelda 1. It's like we have this thing. The final dungeon has to be super special. We have to put this massive gate on it and make sure you have all of the things. And then we're going to give you this music that just makes you feel like doom is around every corner.
Yeah. And it really is. This dungeon is no joke. And I don't know if you, Lobos, you looked at the map of this afterwards, but I feel like it's 2 or 3 times the size of any other dungeon. It is.
I did check it out once.
Huge.
I got pretty lucky, I think. So I ended up going down one path incorrectly, but then the whole rest of the way, I guessed correctly, going left and right.
Yeah.
And I managed to make it down. So I found my path. I love looking for little hidden walls, and I knew
there's a bunch.
As soon as the game was like, there's a hidden wall, and I found a hidden wall, I started looking for those everywhere.
Yeah.
And there are a bunch, but I think only really one of them is beneficial. It has just a fairy. Maybe another one does.
There in this one, I think there's also a extra life in one of them.
There's an extra life. Mm-hmm. Where you were just now, if you go left, I think there's an extra life.
Okay.
I don't think it was a hidden wall, though, but I could have missed that.
Oh, maybe not then. Yeah, the extra lives are weird. So they're like little dolls of Link, and of course, if you pick them up, you're Link holding a Link, which is a little weird. But those things, unfortunately, they don't carry through once you die. So it's kind of like a one. It really is a one-up. But what would have been really awesome is once you died, it would be cool to be like, well, you've collected 3 one-ups, and you normally have 3 lives, so we're going to give you 6 lives. Like that would have been awesome,
mm-hmm. Like the Estus of Link dolls.
Right.
In this dungeon, there's this big blue blob that falls down on you. Yeah. I failed to do it, and I don't think I ever saw you do it, Lobos. But if you do a jump up attack on that, it will actually kill it. All the guys will go around. And then also when you drop right before you get to the Thunderboard, if you go to the left, there is it's either one of the red dark nuts or full magic bottle thing.
Potion, yeah.
All right. Who wants to walk us through Thunderbird, and then the other person's going to walk us through the final fight?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll do Thunderbird. Sure. I got here once, and this was before I had the Thunder spell. So I tried everything in my arsenal, and nothing seemed to damage it. So I left, and then I had to go find...
So I left.
And
Zelda's still sleeping.
As you do, Zelda's still sleeping. And I eventually did find the Thunder spell, which, as far as I know, is the only way to make this boss vulnerable.
Yeah.
So you walked into the fight. Mm-hmm. I figured, because it's a spell that I never used anywhere else. It's kind of an ultimate spell. And then there's a seemingly final boss that needs it, or that isn't susceptible to anything else. So I used it, and sure enough, it becomes vulnerable. He drops a bunch of fireballs, which are sort of
a slow pattern to start with, right?
Yeah. The first half of his health, they're pretty slow as far as the tempo of the fireballs that drop, and they're somewhat based on your position, so they're easy to manipulate enough. And then the second half, he starts going ham, and there's a bunch of fireballs. Yeah. But I found the best.
You can see I have reflect there.
Reflect. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I found if you're going left to right and then all the way back left and you're going all the way across, he doesn't, predict your position. He throws fireballs at where you are at the time, so you can kind of stay ahead of him, and it works out.
All right. Now on to Shadow Link. Alamaxia, over to you.
So here we have a wizard who is giving Link his final trial. Link must overcome himself and prove that he is the hero. And you must fight your shadow. And it is a fight that is kind of like against a Dark Nut. You have Link that can basically fight just like you. He can raise a shield, lower a shield, attack high and low, and really all you have to do is sit in the bottom left and stab.
Stab up, stab down.
Mm-hmm. It's Impa, right? Isn't that Impa?
No. This is a sage. This is a sage that was guarding the Triforce of Courage.
Oh. Impa put Zelda to sleep, didn't Impa?
No, that was done. It was a wizard that was controlling the Prince of Hyrule.
Oh, wow.
That it was an evil wizard, and he cast a sleeping spell on Zelda.
Oh, wow. Okay, I had all my lore wrong.
But real quick, before we get too far, let's talk about the fight. How I did it. I think Lobos, you found it by accident, but I've seen speedruns, so I kind of knew the cheese strat. Because that fight is so hard. Now, mind you, you're going in with the same health and magic that you had in the Thunderbird fight, and so Thunderbird takes most of your magic. So really, you don't have a lot of resources when you're going into this, and this fight is brutal. But really, if you just sidle up to the left side of the screen, crouch down, let him come towards you, stab him. Yeah, it's
he's really fun to fight without the cheese. It is a really fun fight.
Yeah. Now I will say, Shigeru Miyamoto, worked on this game, and I think this is he kind of cites this as like one of his least favorite, because they basically designed it all and then implement it as is. Where what he liked to do back in that day was actually design it and then kind of build it and start iterating on it. And I think one of his biggest things he wanted was like bigger bosses. So it's kind of some interesting thoughts. Is this game is kind of the black sheep of the Zelda franchise? I would say it's it's divisive, and
Certainly.
people will say like, "Oh yeah, I hate it," but for what it's worth, I love this game. I think it's really.
I enjoyed it a lot. I went into it and people were always like, Zelda 2 is so difficult and this and that. But with all the NES games I've experienced, I didn't feel like it was that hard compared to some others. Like the ending was definitely the last palace was rough, but I didn't need to abuse save states or anything, and they had a checkpoint at the beginning of that palace.
Yep.
So I didn't feel it was over that tough, but it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed the RPG. The RPG aspect added to Zelda. I really liked it.
It's so fun. Again, I would love to see another one of these. I'm almost certain I remember seeing a game within the last year or two that was released or was working on, or that people were working on, that was like this. I was trying to find it. I couldn't. I'll have to hunt around a little bit more for it though, because I would love another. Alamaxia, give us your thoughts here.
This is one of my favorite games of all time, and it's for a very different reason than me just loving Zelda. And I hope I don't tear up or choke up, but my gaming buddy growing up was my dad's best friend that I called Uncle Dan. And I got stuck on this game when I was like maybe 5 or 6. And he borrowed my game, and over the weekend, I doubt you'll see him on screen here, but I have all my hand-drawn maps from him that he wrote out to help me get through the game. Maps to show me how to get through that maze of caves where you go to get the hammer, and really everything before that. So he fueled my love of gaming, and this is just, it's a game that I fondly look on. Yeah. So I've played through this so many times. Just, I want to go fight Thunderbird.
That's so cool.
Nice.
Yeah, you shared those images. I was looking through it. I was like, yeah, like I love those, and it's something special when you open up your box of games. It's like, yeah, here's the map I drew, or my dad drew 20 years ago on this, and it's really cool to see that. So yeah, good memories there. Thanks for sharing that with us. So
sure.
It's super fun. If you haven't played it, it holds up so well today. As long as you're willing to kind of go in and figure stuff out your own. I think that's where a lot of the magic is kind of like deciphering the clues and figuring out where you go. Eventually, you're probably going to get stuck and, pick up a Nintendo Power or a GameFAQs, but yeah. So super excited for people to check this out, and we would love to see what you think. So if you do check it out, or you have your own thoughts or stories on it, send them our way. I'd love to read some of those in the future there. So let's see. We had a quick little Patreon screen that just flashed there. So again, for all the Patreon supporters that supported us through the year of 2021, of course, in previous years, but especially in the year 2021, I want to say thank you so much for helping make this show possible. It's been so much fun, Lobos and Alamaxia, chatting with you every month here, playing some really amazing games, some games that were, like Max Payne that just qualified this year, some games that maybe weren't so great but were super iconic, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then again these games that just hold so many memories, the Zelda games. So special thanks to Alamaxia and Lobos for really making my day, once a day every month, get to chat with you guys about this, and I'm really glad we can share our experiences with everyone, and it's all because of our fantastic Patreon supporters. And so, again, if you are interested in helping to support the show and these lovely folks to the left and the right of me, or maybe it's going to be to the right and the right to me, we'll figure that out later. You can head over to patreon.com/Saturday Morning Gaming Show to learn more, or you can just head on over to SaturdayMorningGamingShow.com, and then we got all of our episodes, all of our links, everything you need to know right there.
Before we go too far, I just want to say shout out to you, Wiz, for putting all this together, coordinating it, doing the editing, and getting all this out. it's a lot of behind the scenes work that you do, and it is really appreciated.
Oh, thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
So, yeah. So in this game, we were playing a very, very known hero of much renown, but I want to play a game where no one knows who I am.
Yeah.
What are we going to play next?
Yeah. See, so we're going to play Cheers. Wait, that's not the one.
No, that's where everybody knows your name.
You
That's the opposite. Whoa, you said Inwa. No.
So one of the things I like to do is, 2022 rolls around. That means a new year's worth of games qualifies, and I always like to take out one of the highlights there that I've been wanting to play for a while, and kind of ring in the new year of 2022. So in January, we're going to be playing Morrowind, which, I mean, when I say that out loud, it's so crazy. Morrowind is 20 years old, starting, sometime next year. But wow, it's finally
it was my first
Morrowind
Xbox game.
the Xbox is retro. What is? Oh man, Anyway,
Morrowind was my first Xbox game, and I had too many hours in that.
Yeah.
I can't wait for this podcast.
It's super cool. I'm going to have to approach it differently. I'm so used to going out and exploring the entire world. That's not going to happen in a 1 hour stream. So I'm going to crit path it. You folks decide how much you want to play or how little you want to play, but we're going to focus primarily on the main story. Well, sadly, we have reached the end credits of this episode, and so we wanted to thank everyone for listening to us on the podcast or, of course, watching us on YouTube.
And make sure you go to iTunes, Google, Spotify, or to SaturdayMorningGamingShow.com and follow our podcast. Subscribe to it. Give us a listen.
Yeah, and of course, we release a new podcast every month, or sometimes even 2 months. So, yeah, a good way to get all that stuff without really thinking about it. And then, hey, if you're listening to us on a platform that allows you to rate us, please do so.
And if you have any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email at SaturdayMorningGamingShow@gmail.com, or you could use the contact form, SaturdayMorningGamingShow.com on our main website.
Okay, and we just want to give a special shout out to TechnoX for much of the music this episode.
All right, for Saturday Morning Gaming, I'm Alamaxia.
I am Lobos.
And I'm the Thefatwizard. We'll see you in January for the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. Happy holidays, everyone, and stay safe out there.
Bye.